Who is Dundermoose?
And welcome back to This is Dundermoose. This is part 2 of the series, what did I call it? how to run a BrOSR campaign this year. So, did your homework, watch episode 1. You got the right mindset. So now it's time to start, to actually do. And it can be intimidating. It can be a little off-putting. You may not feel ready. I certainly didn't. I mean, if you're looking at the time and date stamps, there's kind of a bit of space between when I recorded that last one and this one. And so the first thing you need to do is it depends. If you're organized and you're like, I know I can do step A, then step B, and then step C, the first thing to do is what we're going to cover in this video, and that is world building, how to get your campaign off the ground, right? If you're like me and your brain wants to do all kinds of other things besides what it needs to focus on, you might need a deadline. So for me, the thing that helped the most was not waiting until I was ready, but just calling a bunch of people or emailing or texting them. In my case, it was a bunch of people from work. It was a bunch of people from church. I invited way too many people. If they'd all showed up, it would have been crazy at my house. But I knew I had a date on the calendar and I had people coming. And so then I could get started. So if that's the kick in the butt you guys need, I'd recommend doing it that way. Otherwise, if you know you're organized and you have good follow through, you can start by preparing and then invite people when you feel ready. But either way, however you do that, this is not about the first session. This is about what to do before the first session. And I used a word, I said world building, not a good word. This is where you did not get into the BrOSR style of play because you wanted to write a huge novel ahead of time and then drag your players through it, right? There's a reason why no prep is so enticing. There's a reason why limited prep. I'm a dad. I got a job. I actually got 2 jobs. I go to church. I got a family. There's a lot of other stuff that is got a legitimate claim on my time than the hobby. So I don't want to spend too much time just doing it that way. So we are going to turn to page 173 in our Dungeon Master's Guide, and we get a lovely little appendix called the Random Wilderness Terrain. Now I want to point out, Gary says, if a wilderness expedition moves into an area where no detailed map has been prepared in advance, the random terrain determination system below can be utilized with the relative ease for a 1 space equals 1 mile or larger scale. He was expecting you to build your own map first, and then if the players went in a direction you weren't prepared for, you could roll it up on the fly. Well, I'm gonna roll the startup on a fly, right? Because I don't want to sit there thinking about, and I know I'm not taking anything away from people who love nothing more than to start off studying astronomy and planetary formation and plate tectonics and magma circulation and turbidity currents and figuring out the windward and the leeward side of mountains and what that does for precipitation. And that's not us. Your players will not care about that. So we're gonna do the random stuff. I'm not taking anything away from those guys. More power to them. You know what I did yesterday after work? I came home and I played badminton in my backyard with my wife and my son and my daughter. My oldest, she took the car. She went off somewhere else. But that's more fun than any role-playing game. Sorry to lay it on you, but this is fun too. But I'm just saying, I would rather not say no to the other stuff in my life so that I can have a more authentic, realized world. I'm not writing a science fiction novel here. We're just setting up for a campaign. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to use a little free software called hexfriend.net. This thing is pretty sweet. It's free, and you've got terrain, you've got icons, you've got paths, you've got text boxes. we've got everything we need to create our little starting area. And how big? We're not world building. We're not going to do a whole world. We're not going to do a whole continent. We're not going to do, here's what you need. You need a map. You need a dungeon. You need a starting town, right? And then you need for your starting town to have a problem. And that problem needs to be solvable by going to the dungeon. That's all you need to get started. The rest of this stuff is going to organically spiral out from where we start in our campaign. All right. I know I've probably already lost some of you. Some of you are saying, oh no, I need to know the history of the region, and I need to know what happened before the great cataclysm, and I need to know the great grandfather of the this is Star Trek The Next Generation, and I need to already have watched the original series to know what's going on. No, not this. That's not us. That's not what the BrOSR is doing. I may be doing it wrong. So any bros in the comments, feel free to straighten me out. Even if you're not bro, even if you are rabidly anti-bro, go ahead and let me have it in the comments. Tell me why we're doing this wrong. But this is a way that I have gone about approaching starting this campaign. And remember, the goal is what Gary talked about at the front of the book. You want to create a campaign that is a superior alloy of you and your best players. So you don't want to be the one responsible for the world building. The world building is what happens after you say go. Nevertheless, we do need a board to play a game on. So here's what we're starting with. I'm going to go to hex friend here, and this is kind of a big, if we're doing one hex per mile, which is really zoomed in, but later on I'm thinking about the 6 hex mile, right? So let's come over here. We're again https://hexfriend.net, and I'm just going to click on the gear icon, and let's look at shape and size. And you can do a hex flower or a square, however your mind works. I like the flower. I think that's a friendly look. So right click is how I move things around. Just click and drag with your right click. And let's go 6 hexes out from the center. So here's the center, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So technically that would make this a, would that still make this a 6 mile hex? Maybe we should do a 5. So 5 from the center. Okay, now I'm thinking about the math. A 6 mile hex would be 2 from the center, right? That might be a little too small. Let's start with a good 5. There's plenty of hexes here in a 5 mile hex. Or 5 hex from the center hex. Flower. Man, this is why I do stuff live with guests, so I can let them flummox over the words. Irregardless, here's what we're rolling with. Here's how we're going to start. So I'm going to start right here in the center of the map. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. So this is the center. I'm gonna just plop it down. So it starts off with a grassy plains hex. That's what the default first thing selected. That doesn't mean this is going to be a plains hex. Let's actually go. I'm going to really throw a busy screen here. On the top left, you will see I have my my dice tray for rolling the dice. On the right, I've got the page that I'm referencing. I don't know if that's too small to read or not. I've also got it in front of me, hard copy. And in the bottom left, we've got the software that I'm using. So we've got how many? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We've got 8 different types of terrain, and I'm going across the table here on page 173. So I'm going to roll a D8, and I'm going to go with whatever it comes up with as our starting hex. So hey, there we go. I just rolled a 1. So sure enough, 1 is plains. And so now, starting in the center hex, it's a plains hex. And I've got 1, 2, 3. I've got 6 hexes around it. So let's see where we should start with a D6. And you don't got to get this ridiculous. This is just what I'm doing for randomness. So 6. So if north was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the next hex that I'm going to roll is going to be this one off to the top left. And we are rolling from the plains column. So you'll see that if I roll anything from a 1 to an 11, it's going to stay plains. If I roll a 12, that's a scrub. 13 is a forest, which has a chance to include hills. 14 is a rough. 15 is a desert. 16 is hills that have a chance to include a forest. Then we got mountains that might have a pass. We've got a marsh, also known as a swamp. Yes, you can accidentally have a desert swamp or a swamp desert, depending on how you interpret the rules. 19 is a pond, and 20 is a depression. And notice that the pond will be, where does it talk about this? If a pond is indicated, the terrain it is in is the same as that of the previous space. If a depression is indicated, there we go, okay. So the previous one just copies that terrain, but it has a pond in it. If a depression is indicated, the referee must decide as to its nature and extent. Generally, the terrain it is in must be the same as the previous space. A depression in a marsh is some form of lake. So we do have to use the old noodle. We can't just totally rely on the random chance of fate. But sorry, I don't want to play with my mustache too much. That always bugs me when people have facial hair and they play with it all the time. But then you're guilty of it once you. It's like shaving your head and then just rubbing the stubble. You until you're used to it, you're gonna do that. Where was I? Yes, the next bit of terrain. I'm gonna roll a d20 and I'm gonna see what it is. A 2. So we know 1 through 11 is a plane. So I got another plane here. So let's keep going around clockwise and filling it in as if from the last hex. Okay, so from this one I get a 16. So I'm in the plains column, and a 16 is a hills. And the hills have a chance, a 1 in 10 chance of the hills including a forest. So let me first put the hills down so I don't forget that. But this may be a forested hills. So where's my D10? On a 1, these hills have woods. And hey, look at that. Haha, it worked. The hills have woods. So where's my my forest hills hex? There we go. All right. So you see how this is working? So here we go. I'm going to keep rolling it up. So from hills, our next roll is an 11. So now I'm going all the way over to the right on the hills, and an 11 is actually more hills. So let's also see if a 3, the hills do not have a forest. So these are just straight hills. And because we're in a grassy area, I'm going to go ahead and give them grassy hills. And from the hills again, a 15. And now we have reached into the mountains. And 1 in 20 mountains have a pass through the range. So let's see. On an 18, they do not. So now we've got a mountain with no pass. From the mountains, we're going to roll a 16. And that results in more mountains. And finally, from the mountains again, we're going to roll a 2. And that gets us to some scrub. So where's my scrublands? So now we're in the scrublands. You know, this is like where the grass and there's all kinds of little shrubby things and maybe like bare rock poking through the grass. Think of Rohan, right? So I don't know. Maybe does that mean that this is in the wind shadow of the mountains? Are we already starting to see, over here is going to be lush and over here is going to be Santa Ana winds? I don't know. Maybe. Who knows? So now we've completed the inner donut, if you will. Let's just continue out here to this one. So from the scrublands, we get a 14. A 14 from scrub is rough. Oh, okay. So let's get the badlands. Where's that? That's a volcano. Here we go, badlands. So that's what I consider the rough. I'm not sure. What Gary says rough is, it just says terrain guide, rough badlands. So, yeah. Let me just, yeah, I gotta stop smiling. My mustache doesn't look right when I smile, I notice. Some people just have unfortunate facial hair. All right, from the Badlands, we are gonna go to a number 3. And that is Scrub again. And we're just going to keep rolling around. 18 from a Scrub is a Marsh. Alrighty. So here's I think this is my swamp. So it's getting marshy up here. And number 8 from the Marsh should be Hills. And let's see if the hills have trees. They do not. Future Dundermoose here. This is Dundermoose here, that is. I noticed that while this part of the video may be instructive, it's probably not the most interesting. So I've decided I'm going to speed up some of the parts, and I may just delete some of the ones that are just kind of repetitious. I will, however, slow it back down for the parts where I had to make a decision, and you can see me talking myself through the decisions I had to make. So just to let you know, it's not going to be smooth throughout. Like if you were like hoping for some, work time Microsoft Excel spreadsheet ASMR listening to Dundermoose, it's going to get a little quick in bits, and it might jump a bit. But that's the decision I tried to make. I do really appreciate this time being with you on your computer, in your car, on your phone, however you're enjoying this, and I hope you stick with it. Some hilly country to the north. A number 9 from the hills will grant us more hills, and those hills are not wooded either. A number 11 from the hills will once again result in a number 4, non-wooded hills. And since we're in hills, I might as well roll them both at the same time. So a 12 is more hills, and you see I got a 1, so now we've got some forest hills. And a 1 and a 6, from hills, a 1 is plains. So here we go. From plains, a 6 is more plains. Remember, 1 through 11 is more plains, 5 is more. 14 from a plains is a rough. Give me back to that rough. And then from the rough, we get a 16, which is more mountains. Do these mountains have a pass? They do not. All right, from the mountains, it's a 4, and a 4 turns out to be more rough. And from the rough stuff, it's an 8, which gives me more rough. So we got a stretch of badlands to the west of us. Number 6 from the rough is more rough, and a number 1 from the rough is a plain. So we're back to the easy coast in the plains, and from a plains, a number 20 is a depression. So let's think about this logically. Remember, when we get a depression, the referee must decide as to its nature and extent. Generally, the terrain it is in must be the same as the previous space. A depression in a marsh is some form of lake. So we could say that there is a depression in the plains, but look, the depression is right north of a swamp here. So I could go either way on it. What kind of swampy stuff do we have down here? We got a marsh and a swamp. Oh, maybe that's how we'll do it. Maybe this was actually the marsh, and this is the full-on swamp because of the depression. And let me come over here to my icons. And I don't know what y'all use for your maps for a depression. I'm a fan of just dropping a hole on it. So here we've got all the icons. Notice that they're pretty huge. Let me zoom in a bit. The icons are pretty huge on the map, but you can bring them down a bit. And you can also change the color of the icon. So if I want to give it like a nice dark blue, like a purpley blue depression, a depression in our swamp. Let's make it, I don't know, maybe more of a swamp green. I think that just blends in too much. I think I'll just go right back to black. So there's a hole in the swamp. What's up with that? There's just a pit in the swamp. Sounds like a lovely place. Let's keep on trucking, though. We got more map to fill. Number 18 from the marsh. Number 18 is a pond. All right, so a pond in a swamp. We're starting to get into... would that just be a straight up water hex? Okay, help me think about this. Pond in a swamp. Well, he does say if a pond is indicated the terrain it is in, is it the same as that of previous space? If a depression is indicated, a depression in a marsh is some form of a lake. All right, so this should have been a lake instead of a pond. And then if I've got a pond in the next one, it should be hang on a second. That's not what I was trying to do. I want to erase that guy. There we go. I think we can make the case that these two are connected. This is part of a larger body of water. So, I mean, I could do it one of two ways. I could just have two swamp hexes, and you know, I like when there's two continuous depressions. I like to, especially if they line up this way, I like to put the ravine in. Or you know, I could put the icon for a hole in both of them. The other thing I can do here, let me show you let me get back to a blue color just to say it's a body of water. I can make it bigger, but there's also the option right here. It says to snap it to the center. So if I turn that off, I can put my icon where I want. So I could make it a huge icon and then just kind of drop it over both. You see how it's kind of covering both of them. So I could say that there is a large body of water in the swamp that covers both. I think that's what we're going to do for that one. And then we're just going to bring it right back down and go back to black. All right. Well, keep on rolling. We got 11 from the marsh, and 11 turns out to be more marsh. And from that marsh, 18 turns out to be another pond. So we'll go swampy here, and we'll drop another pond on it. I'm just going to grab the same color I used on the last one. So we got a pond there. I can't put drop shadows or anything. I don't know how visible that is. Maybe because the tree is dark, maybe I should go a lighter with my pond color. Yeah, let's do it that way. And then maybe I can use this kind of little border on here. So I just want to do them. Anyway, let's keep rolling. Man, so to the left is all badlands. To the top is all ponded marshes. Marsh 15 is another marsh. So we will continue marshing around the board, if you will. 11 from the marsh is another marsh. 15 happens to be another marsh. And a 5 from the marsh is a forest. Okay, we got our first forest here. Remember, trees are a lot of water. 16 from a forest is hills, and do the hills also happen to be forested? They do not. All right, so hill country it is. From the hills we get a 16, which is mountains. From mountains we get an 18, which is more mountains. Oh, shoot. No pass. No pass. All right, from mountain we get 2, which turns us into scrub. And from scrub we get an 18, which is back to marsh. We're in, now that is an unusual marsh right there. Oh, goodness. Sorry, from the marsh we get an 8, which takes us back to the hills. And these hills are also not forested. And from the hills, 17 will give us more marsh. I'm sorry, those are supposed to be hills. And now we get marsh up a notch. Probably from this region. From the marsh, a 12 will continue just marshes all over the place. Number 4, from the marsh is scrub. Okay. Let me know in the comments how you guys feel about this random generation. If you think it's the lower stuff quicker and easier, or you're like, no, I'd rather just think about text and put in there. I'm a fan of this stuff, it's more quick and easy. It's funny, it feels like playing text when you build inside. I don't feel like I'm sitting there with a pillow and thinking about stuff. It feels like I'm actually playing the game. I'm rolling, I'm being surprised, and now my job as a DM is going to be how to realize the map that I rolled when people are playing. So, I rolled a 1, and I'm coming from scrubs, so that gets me back on the plane train. Oops. Come on now, you. All right, from the plains, I guess 7, that's going to be more plains, because 1 through 11 is plains, 5, same thing. 4. 18 from the plains is more marsh. And from the marsh, we go back plain. From the plains, we get 12, which will take us into the scrub country. From the scrub, we roll 18, which will bring us right back to our beloved at this point, marsh. We are rolling up from the marsh, a 13, which is more marsh. I'm starting to wonder if this is tropical plain, y'all. Some everybody action we're going on here. So 9 from the marsh happens to be more marsh. 18 from the marsh is a pond. So I'm just going to go ahead and use our first water feature here. From the marsh, 1 is a plain. Number 9 from the plains is another plain. Number 8 is another one again. And 5. And 19 from the plains is a pond. So I'm going to plain, and I'm going to put a pond in it. Then let's grab the shallow water color. And then let's shrink it down just a bit so we get a nice border. Oops. I'm going to grab that and scooch it up just a bit. There we go. I see that border. I'll stand out more. Okay. Now I don't want to hold that depression this time around. I got to admit. And all the marsh, so there's not these holes here that I'm used to. So 4 is another plain. And keep going around. 14 plains. Give us a rough. So it's time for the badlands. So get back up again. And this would be a 2 from my angle. Yep. So 2 from the rough is more plain. And we go 8, 4, and 9, which is plain, plain, and plain. We're finding out on the outer edge. 2 is another plain. 6 is another one. 19 from a plain is a pond again. So back to our ponds we go. And make it a little bit bigger. And I'm going to grab that color. Yep. Oh, let's switch off the blue one. Alright, there's that. And I'm going to shrink around it. And grab this color. And then I'll just drop the pond on it. Alright, but pond still counts as a plain. So now I got 19, which is another plain with a pond on it. So that means these two must be connected. So I'm going to drop my plain here. I'm going to go here and erase these ponds. So now I got 2 ponds connected. So let's just make it as big as we can. And make it as big as we can. Oh, I'm sorry. And is there a way to rotate it? Perhaps not. If not, here's what I can do. I can just drop one on here and drop another on top of it. I mean, like just go all the way down that way. I don't know if that's super bad or not. Not sure if I care either. Is there a way to drag, erase, snap, and icon dropper? Yeah, you get there's a big lake here. I just found a big one, a big full on lake. Alright, that's top. That makes the other one. That's 12. So that brings us into square root of 3. Here comes bringing a natural 20, which is a depression. Alright, so I'm going to go back to this. I'm going to reset the size notation, and here is our first true whole unit depression. I think this is my session. It's I feel her negative emotions are causing me to go on really pop off my face. Alright, we're back on scripting, and from the 19 we're gonna have a scrub depression. There's a scrub on it. So I'm in a place we call it pond lands. Let me get this guy, and then we're just gonna pick up our pond color, and we're gonna drop him right into that one. 2 from scrubland is one. And number 5 is another plane. And 8, we start down the plane train. Here we go. From plane we have 17, that is mountains. Let's move over here. So from the mountains, 19 we do not have pass those mountains. From the mountains we move to number 10, which is hills, and do hills have trees? And they have eyes, but they do not have trees. So here's our hilly terrain. From hills we get 15, and that will put us back in mountains. And from mountains we get 7. And 7 is hills, and hills do not have trees. From the hills we get a 19, which gives us a pond in the hills. Okay, lake in the hills. Interesting. So let's go ahead and maybe we can make it a little smaller, and we can just tuck it away up here. Also want to do my trick where I make it a wee bit darker first. Okay, well now if this is a lake, maybe it would be closer to that side. And maybe there's a river coming through it, right? Maybe there's a river connecting that lake in the hills to the lake in the lake. Oh, I can't smile. Wrecks my look. I'm gonna need to get some spirit gum or something if I'm gonna continue with this farce, with this abject farce. Why am I doing it? It's for my fans. It's because of the bullying. Here we go. The hills have an 11. Which will bring us to more hills. And from those hills, and those hills do not have trees on them. And now we've got a natural 20. So now we got more hills with a depression in them. So these hills, there's a hole in them nar hills. Let's actually move this up a little bit. I kind of want to see the hills. All right. So from those hills, an 8 would be desert. Ooh, our first desert hex. Here we are in the middle of the desert. And from desert we get an 11, which 11 from the desert is more desert. So I can see in the desert gets a 6, which is rough. So from just like the absolute drenched part of the map up here, things are starting to dry out. Maybe all these mountains are having an effect. Maybe because these are such high lands, like all the rain is falling down that side. No, what am I doing? I just rolled my third desert, so 17 from the desert is mountains. Nope. And from mountains, we do not have passing mountains. From mountains we get 4, which will bring us to rough again. And from the rough we get 10, and that puts us right back into the desert. And from the desert itself, we get number 1, which will put us back on the plains. So I'm not sure what's going on there. But from the plains we get 15, which is right back into the desert. So there must be some kind of oasis here that is turned right as green. And from the desert we go to number 5, which is scrub. And from the scrub we go to number 4, which is more scrub. And finally, for our last hex of terrain, let's go 13, which from scrub is a forest. All right, so here is the lay of the land. We've got swamps and marshes aplenty. We've got some highlands. We've got some mountains. We've got some badlands. We got a good mix. It's going to be interesting. You may think that we're done now. Ho, no. This is just the topography. We now need to look at the population. So down and to the right, below the table I've been rolling on, we have our inhabitation. So we need to check each space for the possibility of inhabitation. We need to use random numbers from 0, 1 to 0, 0. So we're going to roll a D100 now. And let's get that out of the way. So I got my D100, and now we're going to see for each of these hexes what exists there. And you will find that this is, for such a small little chart, this will create a lot of world for us. You may not believe me now, but let's just watch. So we're going to start with a 37 in my central hex. This should be 0, 0. You know what? Another way to keep track of this is, where is it? Overlay, perhaps? No. Coordinates. I can show my coordinates. So that should help me keep track here. So I'm starting off right where we did in 0, 0, .00. And that is a 37, which On my inhabitation chart, a 37, anything over a 17 is uninhabited. So nothing in 00. I think next we went up to the top left, so that's how I'm going to do it. And I get a 25. Well, that's over 17, so uninhabited. I'm in the Forest Hills hex now. Double lot, -1. And we got a 20. Nothing. All right, I'm in the hills. And I get a 91. Okay, greater than 17, nothing there. Right? I'm in the mountains. I got a 33. Nothing. I'm in these mountains. 26. Nothing. In the scrubs, I get a 74. And so there's still nothing in the center of the map. Now we're out in the Badlands. 46. Nope. These scrubs. Now I got a 9. Okay, well, what is a 9 on here? 8 to 9 is a village. And moving across past this winged horn creature thing or whatever it is, the population of the village is 600 to 900. So I need to generate something that will go from 6 to 9. So that's like, what is that? That's a 1d4 plus 5 times 100. So I got a 4. 4 plus 5 is 9 times 100 is 900. So I've got a village with 900 souls in it right here in the scrub. So that's -2, -1. So let me see. I've got a fort, a keep, tower, palace, castle. Now their village is a single house, which isn't quite good for me because there is on the table, there's a single dwelling. But I think I'm going to use it. So a village right here. Come on now. Oh, shoot, I'm still on moving stuff around. A village right here on -2, -1. And now is the time to start recording on a sheet of paper the coordinates of this stuff. So I am writing -2.-1. And I'm writing village and 900 population. Village with a population of 900. All right. So I think you see how this is starting to work. So let's keep going around. My next hex from here is straight north to, I'm sorry, no. My next hex is -1, -1. And that's a 12, which is also an inhabitation. So 12 to 14, well, hey, we got us a real bona fide castle. So, castle in the marsh. Now, it's worth stopping here to, figure out what's going on with castles, because if you go across on the castle, you'll see there's an asterisk. And at the bottom of the screen, I'm sorry, guys, I can't anymore. It's too much. It says see castle tables, Appendix C, pages 182 and 183. So here's where we're going to start to get into the world building that I was warning you guys about. Castles go way deeper than you think. So I'm going to come over here to page 182. And I've got a castle table I, size, class, and type. And so I'm going to roll a D100. And I've got a 14, which means it's a small castle. Actually, it's a small tower. So I don't really have a castle there. I've got a tower. Let me just read the text above. It says, fortresses. Uninhabited areas are not all wilderness. There will be small settlements and a few strongholds scattered about. If the roll of D20 indicates that there is a fortress in the area, this is for when you're exploring. This isn't for the earlier part. The party will be in visual range of the construction, 1/2 to 5 miles depending on terrain considerations. The castle type, the master of the stronghold, his or her forces, and the castle's awareness of the party adventures are treated below. So we didn't actually get a castle. What we got was a tower. Let me go back to this guy. And I'm going to turn off my... and so we're going to put... there is a tower in the marsh. So I'm going to drop the tower right there. And now I've got castle table 2 inhabitants. So I'm going to roll again. It says once the size and type of castle discovered has been determined, the inhabitants are found. So that looks like a 32 to me. So on a 32, and you got 3 tables. You've got a small, a medium, and a large table. Well, I got a small tower. So I rolled a 32 on the small table, which means that this tower is totally deserted. It can be totally deserted. It can be deserted, and in sneaky parentheses it says monster therein, right? It can be humans or it can be character types. So, if I have any players that roll up a wizard, they got a free tower. You've heard people complain about 1-to-1 time and say, you mean it takes an actual year for me to build a castle? Why that would never happen, right? But what if you found a castle and it was uninhabited? You know, you get a reward for exploring. Why would I want to go into the marsh? Well, if you're a wizard, there's a tower in that marsh. And then other things, the real genius of this style starts to come out is your mind can't help but to ask, why is there an abandoned tower in a marsh? Was it always a marsh? How did it get there? Who put it there? What's the history there? Rich seeding of the imagination, right? Let us continue. Totally deserted indicates the construction is in disrepair and upon close inspection appears empty. So I'm going to write down -1.-1 small tower totally deserted. And I might make myself a note that it's in disrepair. So maybe they don't just get a free tower, right? Like they find it, it's a fixer-upper. They're going to have to get men and supplies and masons and people out there that can refurbish it to a useful state. Yeah? We've got some story capability here. Let us keep rolling. Where did I put my D20 this time? Oh, I dropped it. That's right. Oh, no, I'm doing D100s. Sorry. Oh, man. So let's go back to our page here and keep rolling up in habitation. So 28 is nothing. And we're back into the plains. Okay, now we get a 7 in the plains. Isn't that interesting? It skipped all the mountains and the Badlands, and then there was something again when we got into these plains right here at -2, -2. So an 7 is actually a hamlet. And moving across, I mean, I really like this picture, but I wish they hadn't, like, broken up the line here. Moving across a hamlet is 100 to 400 people. So I'm going to grab my village indicator, and I'm going to plop down a village there. And I'm going to say this little hamlet has 1 to 400 people. Well, this is pretty easy. Just going to roll a d4, multiply it by 100. 100. So it is a tiny hamlet of 100 souls. And now I'm writing this down again. Plains are 5. All right. So 05 is a thorp. And a thorp has 20 to 80. So I'm going to roll 2d4. And add them together and multiply it by 10. So here's one of them. Here's the other one. It is really hard to pick up a D4. Have you guys noticed? Gotta have good fingerprint strength. Alright, so that's a 1 and a 2 for 3. So I've got 30 people living in the thorp. So maybe I can indicate that by having a tiny little village. Little guy, just a little guy. All right, moving right along. Our next, so that's a 03, which here we go. This is a single dwelling. I've got 1 through 12, so I'm just gonna roll 1d12. There's 8 people living in this single dwelling. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna choose the tent for that. So that tent lets me know there's a single dwelling there. That's 0303. So far, we've got a pretty sparsely populated map yet. But remember, this is only 6 miles, right? So if you look at like a 6-mile hex, there's a lot going on inside this little guy if you're going to do a bunch of these. But let's carry on. Let's go. We're now down into 0203, 12. Now 12. So we got another marsh castle. So let's go back to 182. Keep our thumb in the book here at 173. Go back to 182. And we're going to see what is the size of castle that we've just discovered. And this is an 89. This is a large walled castle with keep. So, boom. And we're rolling on the large inhabitants chart this time. So a 94, that means that this castle has character types. Here's where it's going to get interesting. Here's where you're going to see this system generate a faction on the fly. Character types refer to the basic and subclasses of the characters. So now we need to roll on our character subtable to see who is the master of this castle. And we rolled a 5, which means that the master of this castle is a cleric, and they're going to be level 9 to 12. So once again, that's going to be a D4 plus 8. So that's a 1. So we've got a level 9 cleric in charge of this thing. It tells me about monks, tells me about illusionists. For magic items possessed by the Stronghold's master, as well as for discovering the level of his or her henchmen, use the character subtable of the dungeon random monster tables. There will be from 2 to 5 henchmen found within a fortress. Certain character types will have special followers, and these will be found there also. However, except for the clerical profession, these followers will not serve as the main castle garrison. These men-at-arms will be 9 to 12 heavy horse with splint mail and shield, lance, longsword, and mace. 9 to 16 light horse, studded leather, light crossbow, longsword. 13 to 24 men-at-arms, scale mail, shield, spear, hand axe. 7 to 12 men-at-arms, scale mail, heavy crossbow, morning star. Cavalry will be stabled and fight on the walls when necessary. Each of the above units will be led by a fighter of 3rd or 4th level with normal chances for magic items. Leaders are in addition to the figures shown. Fortresses will be stocked with food and water and supplies of arms and missiles. Each will have artillery and sufficient crew to operate each engine as follows. And then it goes into, for a large castle, we're going to have 4 ballistae scorpions, 4 light catapults, 8 oil cauldrons. So, but I heard a loophole in there. It said, except for the clerical profession, these followers will not serve as the main castle garrison. So that makes it sound like clerics, that their followers will serve as the main garrison, which means that for clerics, maybe we ignore all of those. Because, I mean, you're talking about 4 units that are mentioned. Each one is going to have a 3rd or 4th level fighter leading them. And then you roll for those guys magic weapons and stuff. Magic weapons and armor, magic items. I'm going to use the loophole and say, all right, this is... because it's a cleric and he says, except for the clerical profession, these followers will not serve as the main. So I'm going to say that the cleric's followers will. So I need to go to the character subtable of the dungeon random monster tables. So that, I believe, is Appendix C, which starts on page 174. So we know that there's going to be 2 to 5 henchmen found within a fortress. Let's see if the Dungeon Master's Guide has any extra info on a cleric's followers. So I've got a table. I'm on page 16, looking at the clerics. It says 2 to 8 heavy cavalry, 3 to 12 medium cavalry, 5 to 30. But why does it say roll? Oh, I see. Okay, so he's going to get somebody from each category. The question is, does he have 2 to 8, 3 to 12, that kind of thing. So, for my For my heavy cavalry, I've got 2d8, so that's 2d4. So I've got a 4 there. So 4 heavy cavalry. I see now why the cleric was accepted from the standard King with the Castle array. So I got 4 heavy cav, and I'm just going to write page 16 DMG, so I don't have to write everything out. 4 heavy cav. They've got 3 to 12 medium cavalry, so that's going to be 3d4. So that's a 2 and a 2, so that's 4 and 4. So that's 8 medium cav. All right, 5 to 30 light cavalry. Was that 5d6? So 5 to 30 light cavalry. So I got 10, 16, 17, 18 light cavalry. So we got some horses up in here. Now we'll do the infantry. We've got 5 to 20 heavy infantry. Was that 5d4? Gary? I can do the head math in my head. All right, 5d4 for my heavy infantry. So that's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, pretty much 15. So I got 15 heavy infantry. Now I got 5 to 30 heavy infantry with chainmail. So the other ones had splint. So 5 to 30. Oops, that was a 4. So 12, 16, 17, 18. 18 of the second category of heavy infantry. Now the third category of heavy infantry has ringmail and heavy crossbows. And it's also 5 to 30. So that's 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 of those guys. And finally, I've got 10 to 60 light infantry. So that's 50 light infantry. So see, let's count how many people we got. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 20, 25. So I got 129 fighting people here. So this is a major force on the board, especially for such a sparsely populated area already. But I'm not even gotten started yet. Because we need to roll up. It says that there's going to be 2 to 5 henchmen. Let's see, where are we? Characters. There will be from 2 to 5 henchmen found within a fortress. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7. Well, first let's see how many henchmen do we have. 1d4 plus 2, or 1 ought to do it. So that's 3, 4. So we got 4 henchmen. So I'm guessing the 4 henchies are in charge of these units. So we could have 1 guy in charge of the cavalry, 1 guy in charge of the heavy infantry, 1 guy in charge of the light infantry, and 1 guy is like the right-hand man. And just going by what they said about some, if it wasn't a cleric, the followers that come with the garrison would each get a 3rd or 4th level fighter to lead them. So I think for my 4 henchies, I'll say they're either 3 or 4. So we'll just do let's do 46, and if it's 1 through 3, there are 3. If it's 4 through 6, there are 4. So all 4 of them are level 4. So 4 level 4 henches, and I could even go on and roll on that table to see what kind. So the first henchman is an 8. First henchman is a cleric. Second henchman is a... Oh, shoot. I got to re-roll that because I didn't see where it was. Second henchman is a 30. 30 is a fighter. Third henchman is an 85. Which is an illusionist, which is suggestive. Which deity would have an illusionist happily serving them, and they'd be happy to work alongside. And finally, I got a 53 for the last henchman, which puts it also as a fighter. So I got a cleric, 2 fighters, and this illusionist. And now we've got to roll to see the party magic items. So on page 175 of the DMG, you've got party magic items. In order to simulate a party of adventurers, it is absolutely necessary that characters and henchmen have and employ some magic devices. While it is possible to give such parties the whole gamut of items listed, it is suggested that you use the following lists and select according to the following rules. So we'll start with the cleric himself. If the individual is 90th level, he has a 90% chance to have 3 items from table 1, 70% chance to have 2 items from table 2, and a 30% chance to have 1 item from table 3. We'll start with the highest. We'll start with table 3. If he gets anything above a 30, he does not have one of these. He gets a 51, so he does not have a table 3 item. I'm going to give him 2 rolls for 70% on table 2. So the first time is a 71. He just missed it. And the second one is a 61. So he does have 1 item from table 2. So let's figure out what that is. Let me go to table 2, which is on page 176 for those playing the home game. Table 2 is a D8 and a D6. And we're looking for 1 through 16. So I get an 8 and the D6 on a 5 or better. That means you add 8 to the roll. So I got a 16 on table 2. Just to explain that. You've got a table that goes 1 to 16, and so you roll a D8 and you roll a D6 with it. If the D6 is 1 through 3, you just let it stand. If it's 4 through 6, you add 8 to whatever it rolled. Okay? So we got a 16. We got 2 weapons. This cleric has a crossbow of speed and a +2 hammer. You might think, well, these guys, you're going to make them formidable if you give them magic weapons, but you're also putting things into the world that your characters can acquire through violence or stealth or sneakery, right? So it's not always sometimes your players will be happy that they have these things because it means that they have a shot at them. All right, so now we've got a 90% chance of having 3 items from table 1. So 43, he has 1. 90. Does beats it? If you roll an exact 90, I think he does. So I think he has 2 items from table 1. And then 96, he does not. Okay, so 2 items from table 1. That's just a straight D20 roll. He got a 13 and a 19. So he has leather +1 armor and +2 javelin. So I'm just going to say +1 leather, +2 javelin, times 1. All right, so there's the big dude, the cleric himself. Well, what about his 4 henchmen, right? Well, let's see what a level 4 cleric gets. If they're at level 4, they've got a 40% chance of 2 items from table 1 and a 20% chance of 1 item from table 2. So, pardon the vacuuming going on upstairs. So we'll start with the table 2. They need to get a 20 or less. They do not. And for the table 1, they've got 2 shots at 40 or less. That's a fail. And a fail. Alright, so the cleric henchman has no magic weapons. Let's try the 2 fighters next. So for 20, nope. For 40, yes. And nope. Okay, so one of the fighters gets an item from table 1. So I'm just going to write F4, because that's my level 4 fighter. And he's going to get a 19, which is he also has a +2 javelin. All right, and then the other fighter, also level 4, 20 or less, a 50, that is not, and then 2 40s, yes, and no. So he also gets 1 roll on table 1, gets a 6, and that gives him a potion of human control and a potion of levitation. I don't know. An illusionist and a potion of human control. I'm not sure that these guys are good clerics. Anyway, let's go ahead and see if the level 4 illusionist has anything. 20s for table 2. Yes, they do. 40s for table 1. No. And a no. So what does the illusionist have? Once again, I'm going to do a D8 and a D6. So it's a 3, so I do not add 8 to it. So it gets a 1. And 1 on table 2 is 1 scroll that has 3 spells on it, level 2 to 9 or 2 to 7. All right, so it makes sense that the illusionist would get a spell scroll. He's got 3 spells, level 2 to 9 or 2 to 7. All right, so that'd be 1d8 plus 1 for the first. So level 1 spell, and 1d6 plus 1 for the second. It's a level 5 spell. Level 1, level 5. And I'm not sure how that works. If they got 3 spells, and then it says levels 2 to 9 or 2 to 7, does that mean... Well, I suppose I could roll 3d6 and see which... if it's 4 or better, they get the 2 to 9. Otherwise, it's 2 to 7, right? So 1, 2 to 9, which I already rolled for. 1, 2 to 7, which I rolled for, and another 2 to 7. So let's see what the last spell level is. That's a 4 plus 1 is a 5. So 2 level 5 spells and 1 level 1. I'm going to roll those up later. We don't need to know to that level of detail yet, although you could. I mean, we are playing the home game, right? Like, no players are involved yet. We're world building, but we're having... I don't know about you guys. Maybe this is a totally boring video for you, but I'm having a blast doing this because I think it's fun, because it's basically giving my imagination the pieces that I need when we start the game. I already know there is a powerful cleric in the marsh to the west, behind all the Badlands, that has over 100 militant followers, and they've got some magic items, right? So already something that the players are going to have to deal with. So yeah, that's how it goes. I think maybe we'll stop there. I'm going to keep going to populate the lands, but I think this was instructive enough that you get an idea of how do you build out the terrain, and then how do you roll up the people that are in it. There may be, let me go back to that. There's stuff that you didn't see that was on the table, right? Like we saw types of dwelling. There's single dwelling, thorp, hamlet, village, town, city, castle. We didn't get to roll on the ruins yet, but you can have ruins. If it's 15 or 16, you roll on the ruins table, and you roll again. So then on a 1 through 30, it's the ruins of a village. 31 through 60, it's the ruins of a city. 61 through 85, it's the ruins of a shrine. And an 86 through 100 is the ruins of a tomb. So peppered throughout, there could be all kinds of not just habitable living places, but also ones that are uninhabited or that are ruined, like they got destroyed. And man, what a rich place! Looking back on my table here, or my map, where am I going to put my dungeons? Right, anywhere there's a depression, there's a hole in the earth. That's perfect for a dungeon. Like, you could just have a circular hole in the ground with a ladder leading down into it. Right? Maybe the tower is uninhabited, but maybe there's a dungeon under it. And there could be dungeons. I mean, you could put them anywhere. You also have to figure out, based on when you totally fill out the rest of the populated inhabitation, the settlements and whatnot, you got to figure out which one you're going to start your characters off in when you start to play. So we talked about 3 things you needed, right? A map, a dungeon, and a starting town. And hopefully you've seen how just by using Appendix B and then the other pages that it sends you to, you can start populating not just the lands, but the political situation. You can create a situation that you're interested in how your players are going to deal with. And I don't know what they're going to do with that cleric. I don't know if they're going to try and make him an ally. I don't know if they're going to take him on. And you know what? I don't even know what he has to have planned, because once we get rolling and they've had a few interactions and I get a sense of the flavor of what's going on, I can get in touch with another buddy, another pal that may not even be playing with us, and say, hey, here's what you have. You're in charge of this cleric. You know, maybe he's named at this point, maybe he's not. Here's the map of the region. You've got this many troops. This is what the goal was that we started with, but you don't have to stick with it. What do you want to do? And from there, that guy, I mean, he could play, every week like the players would, or maybe I just don't need anything from him except when the play gives me a question, and then I reach out to that guy and say, hey, the players are looking for help for this thing, or you have noticed that they are very close to discovering a thing your guy's been looking for, or whatever. What would your guy do in this situation? and I guarantee you he's going to come up with something that you never would have thought of. I've shared this example before, but I started playing Keep on the Borderlands with my with some dad buds, and I put, the first thing they did is they went to the kobold lair in the Caves of Chaos. And of course they brought the priest with them from the town, and of course he betrayed them, and it was a disaster, and everybody fled, but one guy got captured. And so all I did was I put one of my other buddies in charge of the kobolds, and I said, "Hey Dave, you are the chief of the kobolds. Here's your lair. Here's how many followers you have. You've captured a human level 1 priest or cleric, a human level 1 cleric. What do you want to do? Do you want to feed him to your followers? Do you want to hold him for a ransom or whatever?" And he thought about it for a bit, and he'd been reading the module. He's like, "Well, the goblins have an ogre. I think the kobolds want their own." I never would have thought of that. Man, does that put my players up against the 8-ball, right? Like, but I got the joy of getting in touch with them, saying, "All right, they say you can have your cleric back, but you need to bring them an ogre." And now that becomes their problem, and we all get to be surprised with how they're going to try and figure it out. So, yeah, this is why I geek out for this stuff. I know not everybody plays this way. I know some people are like really militant about it. Sorry for the second interruption, but I also did realize that I never invited you guys to click on the like button or subscribe. And if you enjoy this, or even if this one isn't your cup of tea, but there's other stuff on the channel that you enjoy, please think about doing all of the things I'm supposed to ask you to do, so we can keep the train just rolling the Dunder Moose train. About not playing this way, or about like whenever someone suggests it on Twitter, like always got to jump in and try to dissuade people from trying it. But that's what my channel is about, is just kind of pulling the curtain back on what I'm doing with this stuff, the fun that I'm having with it, and maybe you can use this stuff to make your game better. So with that, it was fun being with you guys. Thanks for watching. And I got a lot of stuff coming up this next week. On Tuesday, I'm going to be on Rolling Bones with Ryan. So that's going to be a big deal. Wednesday, just another Dunder chill stream. I'm going to get some guests on, and we're going to paint some minis. And then on Thursday, a little special lunch treat. We're going to be going all the way back. The very first guest I ever had on This Is Dunder Moose, Rick Stump. His campaign is turning another year older, so I'm really excited to talk to him, hear what's been going on in the C Word campaign since the last time we touched base, and bring all of that to you guys. So it's time to end the video, and I never know what to say. I hope you're having a really good day.